All right.
Heck
All
yeah.
right. Hello, everybody. This is the Last Shot Podcast, and I'm your host, Zachary Hennedy, and we're coming to you live from the 2026 Tribeca Film Festival. Right now, I am in Dallas right now, but I will be in New York via June 11th. And today I had the privilege of sitting down here with the writer and director of one of the most talked about films in the year's U.S. narrative competition, Airport Boulevard. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting to get to meet you guys.
Okay. So before we get into everything, just for the people that don't know yet, do you want to set the scene for us, like in your own words? What is Airport Boulevard?
Yeah. So Airport Boulevard is a Black love story set in East Austin, and is a love letter to the city of Austin, in all the ways that it has changed and reformed, and the ways in which people are still resiliently within this community, staying and laying their roots. And so it's a journey of two friends. It's a journey of a man trying to get back a woman that he met in a place that no longer exists anymore. And I think a lot of Austinites can relate to the fact that, many of things have changed in Austin over the years. And, Austin has this very long history of erasure and gentrification, frankly. And, I wanted to be able to tell a story that spoke directly to that experience,
Yeah.
without it being something that felt like we were trying to just beat people over the head with the talking points. I think a lot of Austinites can feel the change and have felt the change. And I think that this movie is about feeling that with them and making them feel seen in those emotions, and not trying to tell them that, how to feel.
And that's basically what moviegoers want to see now today. It's not like they don't want to be lectured. It's just they don't want their intelligence insulted. Okay,
Right.
so on Xavier and his story, right? So how did you write a love letter to something that's being taken from you while you're still writing it?
I mean, honestly, it's a great question. It's a great question. And I think there's uh, there are I could talk so many different ways about how that was approached. And ultimately what it came down to for us was just speaking to that resiliency and trying to center that in all of these conversations. Ultimately, in our film, literally, in the film as it happens, there are places that we visit in the film that actually were torn down in the duration of filming it. And over the 5 years that it took me to create this project, the overwhelming majority of locations that we shot at were closed down or bulldozed altogether. So, for us, it was, we love the people. The people of Austin are who we made this for, and that is what we love about Austin is the people that make it feel whole. And so, for the story of Xavier to come about, it was really about, really leaning into this idea of who is this person in the context of the world that he's living in, and how does he find himself within it. There's a lot of fantastic films that kind of explore a similar theme of that. One of those that come to mind is The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and a more contemporary example of that. But that movie also kind of deals with that same sort of disposition. And it's important that I think we draw those connections, not just from places like San Francisco, but right here in the South, where where so many people still live and breathe and still have roots here, that are, as we've seen, getting erased and displaced and taken out of the history books.
Okay. So at what point of the story did you know who Xavier really was?
Man, that's also a great question. This movie, it came to life in real time. So much of the movie, everyone talks about, the difference between, like, making a film that feels personal, and a movie that is personal, and I think for me, in the early drafts of the script, I was making something that I felt like needed to represent me in my specific situation or what have you. And over time, as I found Jamal and became inspired by Jamal's incredible acting, I realized very quickly that this story was much bigger than just my own personal grievances. And so, honestly, watching Jamal take on this character really just opened my eyes to the possibilities of the type of story that we could tell. And so, I would say this, to answer that question, there was this moment. And it's in the film. It somehow made its way in, but it's when Jamal and Kenny, are together and they are interacting with each other. That is where we found this is who the story is. This is what the story is, and they found their characters just in the way that they interacted with one another, and leaning into that and not trying to turn it into something that I needed it to be, but rather accepting what was happening and just trying to cultivate those relationships, trying to cultivate the chemistry. That was my priority, and ultimately the film, I hope, will represent and speak to that.
Okay. So Xavier loses his community, right? His friendship and his sense of home. Which of those three losses hits hardest in the film?
That's, yeah. You know what? I would say, got to give you the political answer, man. I gotta do, it is a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I think everything sort of feeds off of each other. When you lose somebody, the places aren't the same. When something disappears, the city isn't the same. And in trying to find yourself in a place that has changed so rapidly, without you in it, it becomes this sort of confused, suspended reality where, you're not really sure what is and isn't real, or what is and isn't there. And I think what that does is it breeds discontent. And I think that, in every character that we see, not just Xavier's character, but in Kenny's character, in the character of Destiny, you see that discontent, and it's built off of, in many ways, the trauma of feeling unrecognized or rejected by the place that you called home.
Okay. So let's talk about East Austin a little bit, because we haven't really got anything from not necessarily a Texas perspective, but an East Austin perspective. East Austin is really shown from this. And what made that statement a purpose for you?
I think, there is an incredible community in East Austin, and it's still here. And to me, as somebody that in many respects is a transplant, I have had roots in Austin, of my family since the 80s, but it was never me that was specifically in these places. It was my grandfather, it was my father, and I would hear these stories of a place that I had never known. And so to be able to discover it for myself and to try to understand what they saw and try to contextualize it with my own worldview and the world that I see, was really important to me. And in that process, I was able to make community with so many people over here in East Austin, and to learn the history. For me in this film, it is not something that I feel like is my responsibility nor my place to tell people how to feel about it, or to tell you in these very specific ways. But what I can do is show you the feelings that I have felt from myself and from the other folks that I have been in community with in this area, and to also highlight the resiliency that I see in spite of everything. And so I personally also actually live in East Austin still, so it's like, I literally, I'm here. I walk
Yeah.
around, I go buy like, and so again, it was like I wanted to make something that wasn't divorced from the material reality of the place that I lived. And so many people that live within Austin in general, but in East Austin in particular, have so many stories of places that have disappeared, or family businesses that no longer
Yes.
are able to function within the communities that they've served for decades. A place that comes to mind right off the bat would be Hoover's, which is closing down, or closed down, unofficially in May. But that was a place that had served this community for so many years. And also just fantastic food. It's things like that, like where you have these places that have been staples of culture in East Austin, and they're unable to sustain themselves. And yeah, it's not only unfair, but it is something that should be talked about and celebrated when it can be. These people need to be celebrated. These places need to be celebrated.
So I went to Morehouse and I studied music, history of jazz, right? And from what I learned from jazz is a music that's about loss and
Mm,
improvisation and resilience.
mm.
Was that a parallel intention from the start?
Oh, 1,000%. And I'm really glad that you said that too, because I think that it is that synergy, of the unpredictability of jazz music, but as it represents those feelings, without having to again tell you how to feel. If you feel these emotions, they are within you. And I think the beauty of jazz music is in the way that it could speak to community. And so, yes, short answer, it absolutely was. And I tell you, the one of the first things that we initially looked at, um, when we were kind of ideating, the visual style of this movie, was Lester Young, "Jam the Blues," I believe. And it's a YouTube video that's still out there. But I mean, it just has so much style and character and feeling to it. And it was something that I to this day I just would repeat, just play it on repeat. And I would just, if I can just channel some of this into my film, that was something that was, always in conversation for us.
All right. So on your craft, you worked with your cinematographer. So how did you convey your vision with your cinematographer to give this, like you said, your visual tone?
I think one of the things that I knew going into my film was that, similar to this conversation of jazz music, I think that there's something about finding the story and finding the rhythm as it's happening in front of you. And so that was really it was a challenge for the cinematographer, honestly. And he was grateful, and we had plenty of conversations going back and forth. But it was one of those things where it was like, uh, I can't I can't quite predict what's going to happen in this moment, but I want you to find the shot. And so there was this element of freedom that every person was able to kind of access themselves, or a version of themselves, that didn't require these stringent rules. I knew I wanted to make a movie that felt raw, and I wanted it to feel real. And so, to me, those two ideas um, cannot be predictable. As much as I would have wanted to, and much as my actors would have loved to have read directly from their screenplays, it was not one of those things where my words on the script were gonna be the answer to the curiosities that they had within themselves. If I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. It definitely does make sense. So what did the road to Tribeca look for you? How did it go about?
I mean, it is it is surreal. Um, that the road was long and storied, to say the least. So many people. I'll say this, this movie was 5 years of me trial and erroring this film. There are scenes in the movie that I won't say that we literally reshot 4 or 5 times over 6 months, because one day we'd get there, we'd shoot it, it wasn't quite right, something wasn't working, so we tried again. And we tried again a few months later. Then we tried again a few months later. And in all of that persistence, it was just us. It was me, at least, accepting the fact that, look, we're not gonna make it perfect every time, but it is those imperfections that ultimately make the film feel the way that it does. That road of 5 years was not just me, and it couldn't have been me.
Yeah.
And one of those things that I learned along that process was, how much people will pour into you when you pour into them, when you can trust them, when you can give them these, when you can inspire people to pour into a project. I think for me, it was the comparatively the easiest part was filming the movie. But the most rewarding part of it was getting people on board. And I think, this movie doesn't go to Tribeca just by me. It goes because so many people were willing to give me time, energy, and effort to make it a reality. It was able to go to Tribeca because of the fact that, Kenny and Jamal and Tolawani were patient and caring and thoughtful in their performances. In 2025, I got the Austin Film Society grant, which was also just one of those major pillars that really helped.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit of money helps a lot.
Yes.
Even if it's 15,000 or 10,000, it takes a village, and that village does deserve to be paid a little bit,
Yes, that's true.
So,
That's true.
it becomes but when you have a place like Austin Film Society in your corner, you're able to knock on a few more doors. You're able to get a few more people involved, a few more people inspired. And I mean, in the truest way possible, like, that is how the film culminated into its Tribeca release. Now, I will say, when we got in, many more revisions of my movie had to be made, and then that's a whole different ballpark. Post production is a whole thing, apparently. But it was everything. Even in those moments, my I guess I would call her my aunt, or my grandmother, Miss Carmen is what I call her. But one of the things that I remember, one of the lowest moments in filming this movie, and getting it created was, she had just sent me this text message, and sometimes she'll just send me Bible verses or quotes. And this time was no different. And I don't remember the specifics of it, but one of the first lines, it was just like, just show up. You don't have to win every day. You don't have to succeed every day, but just keep showing up. Keep doing a little bit at a time. Whatever you can do that. And she had no idea what I was going through. But I kid you not, like, that was the moment for me where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just put my best foot forward. And a few weeks later, we got that notification, you're in Tribeca, and it was just one of those things where it became this relief, in a way, of like, things will work out, it will be okay. But yeah, I hope that answered the question.
It does. So basically, you would say that you had to make sacrifices to get the film made the way you wanted it to get made.
100%. Yeah. Yes. And many sacrifices. The original script itself was a sacrifice. But it's one of those things too, where it's like, in those sacrifices, in those, limitations, I mean, again, your story finds itself.
Yes.
For example, there was, I don't know if I can say this, but like, we were supposed to have this sequence that was like outside of, the Central Texas Austin story that I was trying to tell. Was gonna, let's go to this place and tell this part of the story here.
Yeah.
And then you find out that well, to go there is $20,000. If you have $20,000, you can go there. And it was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what is my story about? It's about Austin. It's about East Austin. It's about the community that I've grown, into adulthood inside of. And so for us, so when that happened, it was, you saw that number. I mean, it was kind of the writing was on the wall the whole time, frankly, but it was one of those things where it kind of solidified, like, make this story about the city, make this story about the people, and make it about everything that you've experienced living here.
Okay. So what did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker that you couldn't learn anywhere else?
Shoot, patience. That this does not happen out of thin air. It doesn't happen overnight. It don't take a couple days. I mean, it's 5 years to get to this moment. And that was 5 years of different ideas, different titles, different scripts, hundreds of drafts, at least 40 physical there are 40 different timelines of different airport boulevards that exist in the ether. This is something that, you have to be patient and persistent. Those are the two things. And I think that when you have both of those working in your favor, you become inevitable. And I'd like to believe that, this film became inevitable because of the fact that my team and my crew and my actors were patient and I was persistent.
Okay. And what was your main inspiration into getting into filmmaking? What was your main inspiration of becoming a filmmaker, becoming an actor, becoming a writer? Why?
My family.
Okay.
One thing that none of my family are filmmakers. None of my family, with the exception of a couple cousins that live in Atlanta that are doing wonderful. No, I mean, nobody in my immediate family were filmmakers, and I, at least from the age of 15, knew I wanted to be a storyteller in whatever capacity that meant. But it was because of the fact that, growing up, I was told all of these beautiful, illuminating stories of my family. And I have such an active imagination in my mind. And, so I would visualize these incredible stories that my family would tell me. And in a literal sense, like, I just would start writing them down, and I would just start trying to put ideas together. And, one thing just led to another. And I got a camera in my hand, and I was like, let's do this. Let's make it happen. I think, my family, not to brag about them, but, it's got a beautiful, rich history. And, it's something that I've always been proud of. And it's something that I want to personally bring to the screen. And, to me, it has nothing to do with the desire to be part of a particular system, but rather just, I want to honor the sacrifice that the generations before me made to put me in a position to do stuff like this. I stand atop decades and generations of folks that sacrificed and didn't have enough and didn't have anything. My grandma was born in a woodshed. You know what I mean? So, like,
you gotta honor that.
it's one of those things where, I want to honor those people, and I want to honor them for the rest of my life, and I want to honor them with the art that I put out there in the world.
Any that was really beautifully said. Any art directors that gave you any type of artistic visual references, and not even say references, but inspirations when it comes to just filmmaking in general? You said at the age of 15 you felt inspired by all the stories that you were told. So is there anything that you've watched that gave gave you, oh, I want to direct this a certain scene or a certain way or certain?
I think for me, we have a rich Black film history of just film that just is transcendent beyond just this traditional like 3 act structure Hollywood system type stuff, which is great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I love all, all these things, but like there's something about for me, like I'll tell you this, like it, there are so many moments. I watched uh My Brother's Wedding, Charles Burnett, um, or Killer Sheep, Charles Burnett. I mean, I'm a big Charles Burnett fan, but like, so to me, it's seeing his way of storytelling that like solidified to me in a real way of like, tell your story, tell the story that you want to tell in a way that is true to you and your experiences, and I didn't want to have to. I think a lot of the times, we kind of conflate this idea of entertainment and this desire to make something that is, in essence, entertaining or in another way, Oscar worthy or good or great,
Yeah.
whatever those terms mean to people. But I mean, like, there are so many films that are beyond and transcend that idea of why does it need to live within this particular structure.
Or label.
And that's not to say that Charles Burnett maybe wanted to have whatever and nothing like he is a fantastic. And my point is that there are so many fantastic films that can do so much more than just entertain us. They teach us, they show us community, they show us culture, they teach us about the world in ways that oftentimes we just don't see outside of our own individual bubbles. And I think that in itself is the beauty of cinema. That is why we make films the way that we do, is because we're sharing our culture, we're sharing each other, we're sharing this story that we live in this world together. and the point is to share the stories of each other to each other. And so
Yes.
to me, that, when I think of filmmakers that inspired me in that way, Charles Burnett is the first example. The second example is Ramel Ross. Nickel Boys and Hale County this evening are 2 films where, to me, again, I just feel the transcendence of this traditional understanding of cinema, and I see instead like a way into a place, into a people, into a time, in ways that inspire me to just make things in a very sincere way.
So when the lights come on, what do you want people to see when they leave this premiere? What do you want them to think?
I want them to think about that's a good question. Wow. Wow. I might have to think about that. There, I mean, because there are, there are multiple takeaways. I would imagine when you get to the end of my film. One thing I think about personally when I personally watch my film, I always think about Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I think about
Yeah.
contextualization of just trying to live within understand his place in his way within the world, not just as also as much of it being about him being a person as much as it is about being Black in an American world that we live in.
Yes.
And learning how to find, to live within the all of, these things, live within the all of the gentrification, the erasure, and the resilience, and the, pursuit of personhood and individuality that, it's still going on.
Yes. Yes.
And to me, I think there is in the all of it, in the all of these things, there is still beauty, and there is still hope, and there is still something to fight for. And I think that finding your place within that is what I hope people try to take away from it.
Okay. What are you working on next, and does it come from the same place this film comes from?
Yes. Short answer, yes. Yes, it does. Um, what am I working on next? I want, I mean, this film to me, Airport Boulevard is a film about the community of Austin that I have experienced. And it is about the touch points that I have seen within the city. I want my next movie to be about my family.
That
I
makes
want it to be
sense.
about
Yes.
my family and their connection to this place. And I want to speak to it in this way that honors their resilience in their fights. And so, you know, um, with that being said, I mean I have a few ideas now, but yeah, you know, uh, I would love to talk about the Fort Hood 5-year championship boxing military troop in the 80s, that my grandfather was a part of. Um,
That
you
definitely will be
know,
very interesting because that's
yeah,
history.
get one of those, get boxing back in the into the conversation. But it's one of those things where some stories, people, you know there are so many stories that just kind of become oral storytelling that we have the power to in today's age to visualize, and to really understand what it was like, in times where maybe it's just been passed down in word of mouth. So I'd love to do that. I'd love to tell a story of my aunt Lula, who was one of our family to actually move to the north. Most of my family has stayed south, in between Georgia and North Carolina. And so, she was one of the only people that actually made that jump during the Great Migration. And so, that would be one of those stories that I'm very passionate about, and something that I would love to just show people and present that to the world. And you know, uh, right now I'm actually reading Isabel Wilkerson's The Warmth of Other Suns, and I'm just, you know, it's kind of an incredible experience to read it, as she's recounting these other stories during the Great Migration. And I just, every time I'm reading, I just think about my Aunt Lula and her story and her experience doing the same exact thing that these people that I don't know are doing. And anyways, I could talk about that for so long. But yeah, I mean, those are the things that I want. I want to make movies about my family. I want to make more movies about the South, and I want to show more of that complexity, and be part of those conversations. I mean, there's incredible movies that have been made in the last 2 years alone, about the complexity of the South, whether that's Sinners or Is God Is,
Yeah.
just like fun stories that bring people in, bring people together. And that's the type of stuff that I would love to present to.
Okay, and I say because I'm from the South, I'm from Texas as well, and I
Well,
lived in Georgia for about 6 years as well, and I like Southern Gothic type stuff,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
feel like that doesn't get portrayed a little bit much. I mean, like you said, Sinners portrayed it, but that's the only time
yeah,
recently that has been portrayed.
right.
Um,
It's new. It is new to cinema, that's for
yes.
sure.
So as a Black filmmaker that's at Tribeca, um, I love seeing Black people win. I love seeing people of color win, and a win for you is a win for me, and is a win for all of us.
Absolutely.
And I honestly believe that this is a good thing that's happening. You get to showcase your creativity, your art, and the stories that you want to convey. Um, is there anybody that you yourself who do you want to inspire in the future?
Is there any is there anyone else that I want to inspire in
like
the future?
like how you have inspirations? Is there anybody like say your future daughter, future son, or you have a son already or a daughter already,
Yeah,
or
no kids yet, but I
it's
mean, absolutely though. To that point, I think the beauty of, again, cinema is that it captures time in a
yes,
very real way, in a way that so many other things, have to describe or you know paint or draw. But cinema is a true time capsule. And I think that is also in many ways why my film feels the way that it does, because it shows you the change of Austin. You see it. It is not something that is verbalized in the film, but rather shown to you right at the outset of the movie, right in the opening. This radical change that happens. And so to that point, you know, I always think about the future of and how would people perceive this movie, and even my future films, in the context of the world that we live in today. Because I think it's, you know, in the you know, the all the noise of the news of today,
Yeah.
you know, that is going to be passed down in textbooks or whatever, you know, a lot of this stuff is going to be lost to the wayside. And I think that's where cinema and movies step in and capture and say, no, this was here too. These people were here. This is how we felt. And even beyond that too, you know, being able to tell stories about my family for not only me to see, but for my family to see. I have a massive, massive family, from the Williams to the Pools to the Hendricks. You know, I have so many people within this family that, you know, are also young and learning about the world and learning about themselves in their place within, you know, this America that we live in. And I think that's important to be part of their awakening and understanding, and being able to also take pride in the family that they come from. And, you know, I think that it's so important. It really is. And so, yeah, I would say that I mean, frankly, I really do hope to inspire my family to be more. And I want to make a movie with my cousin. You know, my cousin's going to be in a Netflix film, next Netflix film with
Congratulations.
Taraji P. Henson. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to get Kai in my movie. I'm trying to
Okay.
get the
Yes.
family together, you know, and you know, have us celebrate each other, you know, and yeah, I mean, I cannot say like Oscar or whatever, like there is nothing better than you know, the support and the love that you get from people that care about you and have poured into you. And
Yes, sir.
you know, as performative and whatever you want to say, it's like that I could not care about anything other than that. Just like pouring into the folks that poured into me.
Yes, yes, yes. So one last question before we wrap up. Was there a moment on set where you felt that the weight of this film was actually conveying what it needed to convey?
Mm, yes, I'll tell you. Yeah, you know, there is a moment where I think it is something that, you know, even to this day, where it shocks me in the way that it presents. I don't know how much I can say about it, but there is a scene with Kenny and Xavier towards the end of the film that you will see, and you know, you'll know it when you see it, because it is one of those things that it's hard to unhear once you've heard, you know, just the conversation that they have, which I feel like speaks directly to the discontent. I think it speaks directly to the feeling of isolation and erasure that comes with things like gentrification. Uh, and so, to me, that scene, it's on the rooftop. It's intense, and it's really powerful, and it's real. Beyond that, it's real. It's something that, you know, I don't know how much I can actually. I mean, I have no PR, you know, but like it wasn't scripted.
Yeah.
It was something that came from them. It was something that I had no hand in, beyond direction of like, this is how I feel this scene should go. And I spoke that uh, to Kenny. I spoke that to Jamal. And what they produced is what we see. And it was something that it couldn't have come from me. It couldn't have been written by me. It could have only come from their real raw feelings and their actual discontent. And so it's a really powerful moment, and it was one that we yeah, I mean, it's one that, yeah, that, you know, still resonates. And I hope that everyone also resonates with it as well.
Yes. But it was very, very good to hear, and I can't wait to actually watch this movie.
Yeah.
I will be at Tribeca June 11th, I believe.
Mm.
And like I said, this is like, I love seeing our people win. I love seeing our people put their stories out. I love seeing them actually get to showcase their creativity that normally it's kind of hard for people to showcase it. They don't have the opportunities to showcase it, or they just don't have the necessary tools to showcase it. And I actually appreciate you taking the time out your day to at least dive deep into your mind, your creative mind, and tell the audience about your creativity and how Airport Boulevard is. So I appreciate it, and I thank you.
Well, I mean, I thank you for letting me on your platform. Seriously. I mean, it's, you know, I'm very proud of this movie. I'm very proud of Jamal, Tolawani, Kenny, Azim, Matthew, Moore, Raven, Garrett, everybody in the crew, everybody. You know, it really is one of those things that, you know, it came from love. It came from a place of sincerity, and, you know, imperfection. And I hope that, you know, it shows in the best way, is how I feel. I hope it shows in the best way.
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. This is Alejandro Hendricks, and he is the director, writer of Airport Boulevard. Please check that out. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was great to meet you too.
It was great to meet you as well.
You want me to? I'll stop this recording too. Let's see if I can do that. Record is being called. It'll be saved to my
Drive, I believe.
drive.